The Vethian fleet limped through space, leaving a trail of debris behind them. Ships that could barely maintain life support stayed in formation through sheer determination of their crews. Jiwoo sat in the command chair, exhausted from 3 days of constant alerts and emergency maneuvers. Taemin stood nearby, no longer a commander but still present as an advisor. His demotion had been necessary, but Jiwoo felt no triumph in taking his place. The human pursuit finally stopped at the edge of the third star system. Admiral Sangwoo's fleet held position, weapons ready but not firing. They had made their point. Earth was not a target. It was a fortress defended by warriors who would never surrender. Jiyeon moved through the medical bay, treating wounded soldiers. The casualties were overwhelming. Burns from plasma fire, broken bones from combat in zero gravity, and psychological trauma that would take years to heal. But the physical injuries were not what troubled her most. She examined a soldier who had been captured briefly by humans during a boarding action. He had been released when the ceasefire was called, returned in a small shuttle with other prisoners. Jiyeon scanned him for injuries and found something impossible. "This cannot be right," she muttered, running the scan again. The soldier had been shot through the chest with a human projectile weapon. The wound should have been fatal. Yet he was alive, and the medical data showed that a human medic had treated him. They had performed emergency surgery in the middle of a battle, saving the life of their enemy. "Why would they do this?" Jiyeon asked the soldier. "Why save you when they could have let you die?" The soldier looked at her with confused eyes. "The human medic said something to me." She said, "We are at war with your leaders, not with you. You deserve to go home." Then she operated on me while her ship was under fire. I do not understand them at all. Jiyeon found more evidence of this behavior. Several wounded Vethians had been treated by human medics. Some had even been given water and food while in captivity. The humans fought with absolute brutality in combat, but showed mercy to those who could no longer fight. On the bridge, Dongha made another disturbing discovery. He had been analyzing the wreckage of destroyed human ships, trying to understand their technology. What he found changed his entire perspective. "Commander Jiwoo, I need to show you something," he said, pulling up a holographic display. "I analyzed the hull composition of human warships. The metal alloys are primitive compared to ours, but incredibly dense. I ran simulations to understand why they would use such heavy materials." "What did you find?" "Their ships are built to survive impacts and extreme stress, not because they plan to ram enemy vessels, but because their home planet forced them to build this way. Look at this data about Earth." The display showed Earth specifications. Gravity 30% higher than standard Vethian worlds. Atmospheric pressure that would crush most species. Temperature variations that ranged from deadly cold to lethal heat. Weather patterns that included storms powerful enough to level cities. "Their planet is hostile to life," Dongha explained. "Everything on Earth evolved to survive in extreme conditions. The humans did not become tough because they chose to. They became tough because anything weaker died." He pulled up more data about Earth's history. Before humans developed technology, their planet was filled with predators. Animals that could run faster than our vehicles, kill with single bites, and hunt in coordinated packs. The humans survived by becoming smarter and more adaptable than everything trying to eat them. Jiwoo stared at the images of Earth's prehistoric predators. No wonder they fight the way they do. Violence is not a choice for them. It is survival instinct. A transmission came through from Earth. It was not a military communication, but an educational broadcast. A human scientist named Kyung-hee appeared on screen, speaking directly to the Vethian fleet. "I am a xenobiologist," she began. "I study how different species evolve in different environments. I volunteered to explain human biology to you, so you understand what you fought against." Kyung-hee showed detailed scans of human anatomy. "Humans evolved from pursuit predators. Our ancestors hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We did not need to be fast. We just needed to be relentless. This trait remains in us today. When we commit to something, we do not stop." She displayed images of human bone structure. "Our skeletons are incredibly dense. A human can fall from significant heights and survive injuries that would kill most species. Our pain tolerance is abnormally high because our evolution favored those who could keep moving, despite injury." Next came information about human psychology. "We form intense emotional bonds with our group members. Family, friends, fellow soldiers. These bonds trigger protective instincts so strong that humans will sacrifice themselves without hesitation to save others. This is not training or discipline. This is genetic programming from millions of years of cooperative survival. Kyung-hee's expression became serious. But here is what you really need to understand. Humans have a psychological switch. When we are not threatened, we are peaceful, creative, and diplomatic. We build beautiful art, compose music, and explore the universe out of curiosity. But when our home or our families are threatened, that switch flips. We become something else entirely. We become what our ancestors were, the most dangerous predators our planet ever produced. The transmission showed footage from the recent battle. Human pilots executing impossible maneuvers, Marines fighting in conditions that should have killed them, ships ramming into superior forces without hesitation. You did not lose because our technology was better, Kyung-hee explained. You lost because you threatened our home. Every human who fought you was drawing on millions of years of evolutionary survival instinct. You cannot defeat that with better weapons or bigger ships. You can only avoid triggering it by not threatening us in the first place. The transmission ended. The bridge crew sat in silence, processing what they had learned. They had not been fighting an army. They had been fighting a species of survivors whose entire existence was built on overcoming impossible odds. Haiwan accessed the ancient records again, reading them with new understanding. The old Vethian elders who had allied with humans had written detailed observations about human nature. One entry read, "Today we observed human soldiers during a memorial service for their fallen. They wept openly, showing deep emotional pain, yet hours later, they returned to battle with renewed determination. We asked one commander how they can grieve and fight simultaneously. He said, we grieve because we love them. We fight because we will not let their sacrifice be meaningless." This is the paradox of humanity. They feel emotions more deeply than any species we have encountered, yet those emotions make them stronger, not weaker. Another entry described human culture. The humans have a saying, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." They prefer peace but prepare for war. They hope for the best but plan for the worst. This duality confuses many species who see contradiction, but it is not contradiction. It is wisdom learned from existing on a planet that showed no mercy to the weak. The final entry was a warning, written by the last elder who had direct contact with humans. Future generations must understand this truth. Humans are not warriors by choice. They are survivors by necessity. They did not invent warfare. Warfare was invented against them by their own planet. They simply became better at it than anything else. If you meet humans in peace, you will find no more loyal friends. If you meet them in war, you will find no more terrible enemies. Choose wisely. Elder Kale sat in his chamber on Veth Prime reading messages from the returning fleet. The casualties were enormous. Families mourned their lost members. The economy would suffer from the loss of so many ships and resources. And for what? Pride, arrogance. The belief that advanced technology made them superior to any potential threat. He composed a message to the Galactic Council. The war with humanity is over. We lost because we refused to listen to history. I propose the following. First, all records of human contact must be made public and taught in our schools. Second, human space must be declared permanently restricted, not as a threat but as a boundary to be respected. Third, we must send an official apology to Earth and request peace talks. We have no other choice. The alternative is extinction. On Earth, in the underground command center, Admiral Sang-woo received a transmission from the Vethian fleet. It was Ji-woo, speaking not as a military commander but as someone who had learned a hard lesson. Admiral Sang-woo, I am Commander Ji-woo of the Vethian Defense Fleet. I am authorized to discuss terms of peace. We acknowledge that we were the aggressors. We came to your home with threats and violence. You responded with exactly the level of force necessary to make us understand our error. We wish to end this war before more lives are lost on both sides. Sang-woo considered carefully before responding. Commander Ji-woo, humanity accepts your offer of peace talks. But understand this, we did not want this war. We offered friendship and you chose violence. The galaxy must learn that Earth is not weak. We are peaceful by choice, not by necessity. Choose peace with us and you will find us generous. Choose war and you will find us impossible to defeat. These are the only two options. We choose peace, Ji-woo replied. These Vethians are about to learn what humans do to threats against our home. We do not just fight. We eliminate. 3 weeks after the first battle, reinforcements arrived from Veth Prime. The fleet now numbered 200 ships, each one a masterpiece of military engineering. Taman stood on his repaired flagship, watching the assembled armada with renewed confidence. This time there would be no mistakes. HFY, a scholar who had once studied under Elder Kale, arrived with the reinforcements. She had been assigned to the fleet as a cultural advisor, though Tamin had not requested one. She found him in his ready room, studying tactical displays of Earth. "Commander, I bring a message from Elder Kale," she said. "He begs you to reconsider this invasion. The cost will be too high." Taman did not look up from his screens. "The cost is already paid. We lost good soldiers in the first engagement. I will not dishonor their sacrifice by retreating now. Elder Kale said you would say that. He asked me to give you this." HFY placed a data crystal on his desk. It contains the complete historical records of human-Vethian contact. He finally managed to decrypt the archives. "Commander, please read it before you attack again." "I will review it after we secure victory," Taman replied dismissively. HFY left, troubled by his stubbornness. She went to the archive room and inserted her own copy of the crystal. What she read made her blood run cold. The records were detailed and horrifying. They described not just battles, but the fundamental nature of humanity itself. The first expedition 6 centuries ago had arrived peacefully. The humans welcomed them, offered trade, and showed them hospitality. But when a minor dispute arose over mining rights, the expedition commander made the same mistake Tamin was making now. He threatened force. The humans responded by destroying the entire fleet. Not a single Vethian survived. The second expedition came seeking revenge. 30 warships, the pride of the Vethian fleet at that time. They bombarded human colonies from orbit, killing thousands. The humans absorbed the losses and struck back with terrifying efficiency. They captured Vethian ships, learned Vethian technology, and reverse-engineered everything within months. Then they hunted down every single ship of the second expedition. The final transmission described humans boarding the flagship and fighting their way through every deck. The Vethian commander's last words were, "They do not take prisoners. They do not negotiate. They do not stop." The third expedition was never heard from again, simply vanished. But the most important part of the records was the alliance that came later. A different Vethian council, wiser than the ones before, approached humanity with genuine peace. They asked for help against a mutual enemy, a species of brutal conquerors called the Crethon. The humans agreed to help. The records contained battle footage from that war. HFY watched in amazement as human soldiers fought alongside Vethian forces. The humans were incredible. Where Vethian soldiers would retreat when outnumbered, humans would stand their ground. Where Vethian commanders would surrender when faced with certain death, humans would find a way to win anyway. In one battle, a human unit of 50 soldiers held a strategic position against 5,000 Crethon warriors for 3 days, until reinforcements arrived. Only 12 humans survived, but they never gave up that position. The Crethon, who had conquered dozens of worlds, fled from human space after 6 months of warfare. They simply could not break the human spirit. The ancient Vethian elders wrote a conclusion in the records. Humans are the best friends and the worst enemies any species can have. If you treat them with respect, they will die for you. If you threaten their home, they will kill you. There is no middle ground. They do not forget kindness and they do not forgive invasion. HFY rushed to the bridge, but Tamin had already launched the attack. 200 Vethian warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly above Earth. The planet hung before them, beautiful and vulnerable. Tamin gave the order immediately. "All ships commence planetary bombardment. Target military installations only. We will show them that resistance is futile." The fleet opened fire. Plasma beams and missiles rained down on Earth's surface and orbital defenses. Human satellites exploded. Space stations broke apart. For 10 minutes it seemed like the overwhelming firepower would simply crush all resistance. Then Earth fought back. From the planet's surface, massive railguns fired projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. These were not sophisticated energy weapons. They were simple metal slugs accelerated by electromagnetic force. But at those speeds they hit with the force of nuclear weapons. 3 Vethian ships were destroyed before they even knew they were under attack. The oceans opened up and missile platforms rose from underwater hiding places. Thousands of missiles streaked toward the Vethian fleet. These were not the primitive chemical rockets from the first battle. These missiles used ion drives and carried multiple warheads designed to overwhelm shields through sheer numbers. From the moon, hidden mass drivers launched containers filled with ball bearings into orbital paths. The simple projectiles spread out in clouds, creating minefields that damaged any ship that passed through them. But the most shocking defense came from Earth itself. Civilian ships, hundreds of them, launched from every spaceport on the planet. Passenger liners, cargo haulers, private yachts, even old museum pieces that had not flown in decades. Every single one had been retrofitted with explosives. They swarmed the Vethian fleet like angry insects. Taman watched in disbelief as an old passenger ship, the kind that once carried tourists to Mars, crashed into his formation and detonated. The explosion took out 2 frigates and damaged 3 more ships. "They are using civilian vessels," Dongha shouted. "There are people on those ships. They are sacrificing their own civilians." Jiwoo checked the communications intercepts. "No, sir. I am reading the life signs. Those ships are being flown remotely. The civilians evacuated to underground shelters. The humans are using their empty cities as decoys while their population hides." A transmission came through on all channels. A human face appeared on the screen. Young-soo, a historian and strategist, looked directly at Taemin with calm eyes. "Commander Taemin of the Vethian fleet, I'm going to teach you a history lesson. You need to understand what you are fighting." The transmission changed to show archived footage of Earth's history, armies clashing with swords and spears, ships firing cannons at each other, trenches filled with soldiers refusing to retreat despite impossible odds, cities bombed to rubble, yet their inhabitants continuing to resist. Young-soo's voice narrated over the images. "Humanity has been at war for our entire existence. We fought each other for thousands of years before we reached the stars. We know every form of warfare. We have experienced every type of suffering. We have faced extinction dozens of times, and we are still here. Do you know why?" The images showed humans rebuilding after disasters, treating wounded soldiers and honoring their dead. "Because we never give up. When you threaten our home, you do not just fight our military. You fight every single human. The old and the young, the civilians and the soldiers, the brave and the afraid. We all become one weapon aimed at our enemy. You cannot negotiate with us because we will accept nothing less than your complete withdrawal. You cannot outlast us because we will fight for generations if necessary. And you cannot defeat us because death does not frighten us when we are protecting our families." The transmission ended. In the silence that followed, Taemin realized the terrible truth. He was not fighting a military force. He was fighting an entire species that had evolved specifically to survive against impossible odds. Hee-Wan burst onto the bridge, carrying the data crystal. "Commander, I have the complete records." The elders were right. "We must retreat now." "We cannot retreat," Taemin said quietly. "Our pride will not allow it. Then our pride will kill us all." Hee-Wan inserted the crystal into the main computer. "Look at this. These are the records of what happened to the previous expeditions." The bridge crew watched in horror as the historical data played. They saw Vethian ships being torn apart by human attacks. They heard the desperate final transmissions of commanders realizing too late what they faced. Jiwoo stood up from her station. "Commander Taemin, I am invoking Emergency Protocol 7. I am relieving you of command on the grounds that you are leading this fleet to certain destruction." Taemin turned to her in shock. "You would commit mutiny?" "I would save our people," Jiwoo replied firmly. "I followed you into this battle because I trusted your judgment. But you are letting pride cloud your decisions. These humans have shown us what they are capable of. Every minute we stay here, more of our people die. I will not let that continue." The other bridge officers looked at each other. Slowly, one by one, they stood in support of Jiwoo. Even Dongha, who had served with Taemin for years, stood. Taemin looked around at his crew. He saw fear in their eyes, but also determination. They were not afraid of battle. They were afraid of pointless death. He realized in that moment that he had become exactly what Elder Kale had warned against. He had let pride and stubbornness override wisdom. "You are right," he said quietly. "All ships cease fire and retreat to the edge of the system. We will open communications with the humans and discuss terms." But the first wave of human missiles struck the Vethian shields like rain on a roof. Taemin watched with satisfaction as the primitive weapons exploded harmlessly against the energy barriers protecting his ships. The missiles were chemical-based, using combustion and simple fusion warheads. Against Vethian shield technology, they might as well have been throwing rocks. All ships target the nearest military installations. Fire at will. Taman commanded. The Vethian fleet unleashed their plasma cannons. Brilliant beams of superheated energy lanced through space toward Earth's orbital platforms. Several platforms exploded immediately, torn apart by weapons far beyond their defensive capabilities. But for every platform destroyed, 3 more emerged from hiding. Commander, the humans are not retreating, Jiwoo reported, her voice tense. They are accelerating toward our position. On the tactical display, hundreds of human ships were charging directly at the Vethian fleet. They were old vessels, barely holding together, some of them modified cargo haulers with weapons welded to their hulls. But they came on without hesitation, without fear. Dongha studied his sensors in confusion.
Sir, those ships cannot possibly harm us.
Their weapons are too weak and their hulls are too fragile. What are they doing? The answer came seconds later. The lead human ship, a converted mining vessel, pushed its engines to maximum thrust and rammed directly into a Vethian destroyer. The impact sent shockwaves through both vessels. The human ship disintegrated instantly, but the collision overloaded the destroyer's shields. Before they could regenerate, a dozen more human ships crashed into the exposed hull. They are using their ships as weapons, Dongha shouted in disbelief. This is insanity. More human vessels executed suicide runs against the Vethian fleet. Taman watched in horror as 3 of his ships took critical damage. The humans were sacrificing themselves without hesitation, treating their own lives as ammunition. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Destroy those vessels before they reach us, Taman ordered. The Vethian gunners tried to shoot down the incoming ships, but there were too many. For every human ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. The void of space filled with debris and explosions. Jiwoo pulled up a communication from one of their cruisers. Commander, the Valor is reporting strange activity. Small objects are attaching to their hull. They appear to be. An explosion tore through the Valor's engine section. On the tactical display, Jiwoo watched in shock as the massive cruiser went dark. Human Marines, she whispered. They used the ramming ships as cover to launch boarding parties. Commander, they are attacking us with soldiers in spacesuits. Taman felt his confidence crumbling. That is impossible. No one fights in the void without support ships. The risks are too great. But the humans were doing exactly that. Marine Commander Jae-hyun led a team of 50 soldiers through space using nothing but magnetic boots and handheld thrusters. They attached explosive charges to critical points on Vethian ships, disabling engines and weapon systems. When Vethian security forces tried to stop them, the human Marines fought them in close combat, using the zero-gravity environment to their advantage. One of Jae-hyun's men reported through the communication link. Sir, we have breached the hull of their supply ship. They store their ammunition right next to their fuel reserves. Basic design flaw. Light it up, Jae-hyun ordered. The supply ship exploded in a massive fireball, taking 2 nearby Vethian frigates with it. The shockwave damaged several other ships. In the chaos of battle, a squadron of human starfighters led by pilot Minji executed a daring attack run on Taimin's flagship. The fighters were small and fast, using maneuvers that would have killed any Vethian pilot from the extreme gravity forces. Minji pushed her fighter to its absolute limits, dodging plasma fire and missiles with impossible precision. This is Blue Leader, Minji transmitted to her squadron. Target the flagship's engines. We only get 1 shot at this. Bora, the Vethian communications officer, intercepted the transmission and immediately alerted the bridge. Commander, incoming attack on our position. Deploy countermeasures. Shields to maximum on rear section, Taman ordered. But the human fighters were not using conventional weapons. As they passed under the flagship, they ejected their external fuel tanks, each one rigged with a timer and enough explosive power to crack armor. The tanks detonated in sequence against the flagship's engine housing. The shields held against the first 3 explosions, but the 4th broke through and damaged the main thrust array. Engine efficiency down to 40%, Dongha reported. We are losing power to secondary systems. The battle continued for 6 hours. By the end, the Vethian fleet had lost 15 ships completely destroyed and 20 more seriously damaged. The human losses were far greater in terms of numbers, but they showed no signs of stopping. More ships kept emerging from hidden bases throughout the solar system. Taman called for a tactical retreat to regroup. His fleet pulled back to the outer edge of the system, beyond the orbit of Neptune. The humans did not pursue immediately, but they maintained a defensive formation around Earth. In the flagship's medical bay, Ji-yeon treated wounded crew members. She had never seen injuries like this. Some soldiers were traumatized, shaking, and unable to speak. Others kept repeating the same words over and over. They do not stop. They just keep coming. Ji-Yan approached one soldier who had been part of a boarding defense team. "Can you tell me what happened?" The soldier stared at nothing. "We sealed the breach. We thought we were safe. But the human soldier, she had an explosive device attached to her armor. She detonated it manually, sacrificing herself to create another opening for her team. Who does that? Who chooses to die when they could retreat?" Ji-Yan had no answer. In Vethian military doctrine, retreat was always an option. Soldiers were valuable assets, trained over years and equipped with expensive technology. The idea of throwing away lives in suicide attacks was contrary to everything they understood about warfare. On the bridge, Timon held an emergency meeting with his senior officers. His pride was wounded, but he was not ready to give up. "We underestimated them," he admitted, "but now we understand their tactics. We will adapt. I am calling for reinforcements from Veth Prime. When they arrive, we will have enough ships to blockade the entire system. The humans cannot sustain these losses forever." Jiwoo shook her head. "Commander, with respect, you are still not understanding what we face. These humans are not fighting a military campaign. They are fighting for survival. There is a difference. Then we will show them that survival requires surrender," Taemin insisted. Dong-Ha brought up new data on his screen. "Sir, I have been analyzing the human communication channels. They are not encrypted, so we can listen to everything they say. I found something disturbing. What is it?" "They are singing, sir. During the battle, many of their ships broadcast music and songs. I had our translators work on the lyrics. They are war songs, victory chants, and memorial hymns for their dead. They treat combat as something almost sacred." Bora added her findings. "I monitored communications between human commanders. They refer to their ships by names, not numbers. They talk about their crews like family members. And when ships are destroyed, they do not simply report casualties. They grieve. But then they fight even harder." Jiwoo pulled up footage from the battle, showing it on the main screen. "Look at this. This human fighter was badly damaged, losing oxygen and thrust. By all logic, the pilot should have ejected. Instead, he aimed his dying ship at one of our missile platforms and crashed into it deliberately. In his final transmission, he said, 'For Earth and nothing else.' The bridge fell silent. Every officer present understood tactics, strategy, and military doctrine. But what the humans were doing went beyond any of that. They were fighting with something the Vethians had never truly experienced. Absolute determination born from defending their home." Taimin looked at the tactical display showing Earth in the distance, that beautiful blue and green planet. For the first time, he wondered if Elder Kale had been right. Perhaps some battles should not be fought, but his pride would not let him admit defeat. "Send the message to Veth Prime. Tell them we need reinforcements immediately. We will show these humans what happens when they refuse to surrender to a superior force." On Earth, Admiral Sang-Woo received reports of the Vethian retreat. He gathered his command staff around a holographic display of the solar system. "They will be back with more ships," he said calmly, "and they will expect us to be weakened from this battle. But we are just getting started. Activate the second line of defense. Bring online every ship we have in reserve, and someone contact Mars, Venus, and the Belt colonies. Tell them to send everything they have. If these aliens want a war, we will give them a war they will never forget." A young officer hesitated before speaking. "Sir, our losses today were severe. Over 300 ships destroyed, thousands of casualties. Can we really win against their technology?" Sang-Woo smiled grimly. "Son, do you know why humans conquered Earth? We were not the strongest animals. We were not the fastest or the biggest, but we were the most stubborn. When a predator attacked us, we did not run away forever. We came back with better weapons and hunted it to extinction." The Vethian fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel near the edge of a star system. The central star burned yellow and steady, with several planets orbiting in neat patterns. Taemin's sensors immediately identified the third planet from the sun as inhabited. The planet was covered in blue oceans and green continents, with white clouds swirling in beautiful patterns. Scan results. "Dong-Ha," Taemin ordered his science officer. Dong-Ha worked at his station, his face showing surprise as data filled his screens. "Commander, the inhabitants are using radio waves for communication. Their space stations are built with primitive metal construction. I am detecting nuclear power sources, which means they have not even discovered zero-point energy yet. Their technology appears to be at least 300 years behind ours. Jiwoo studied her tactical display. I am counting approximately 200 orbital platforms and space stations. Several appear to be military installations. They have noticed our arrival. We are being scanned by their sensors. Taemin smiled. This would be easier than expected. Open a communication channel. Let us introduce ourselves properly. Before the communication officer could comply, an alarm sounded. A small vessel had appeared on their sensors, approaching rapidly from behind one of the system's gas giants. Single ship incoming, Jiwoo reported. It is small, probably a patrol craft. Weapons are powered but not locked on us. Let it approach. Prepare tractor beams to capture it gently. I want to talk to whoever is flying that ship. The human patrol ship was brought aboard the Vethian flagship without resistance. Taemin made his way to the docking bay with an escort of guards. Jiwoo accompanied him, her hand near her weapon but not threatening. The airlock opened and 3 humans emerged. They wore simple flight suits and carried no visible weapons. The leader was a man of average height with dark hair and calm eyes. He looked at the assembled Vethians without fear or aggression. I am Captain Hyunwoo of the United Earthship Defiant, the human said in his own language. The Vethian translation devices picked up his words and converted them instantly. You have entered human-controlled space without authorization. Please state your intentions. Taemin was impressed by the human's composure. I am Commander Taemin of the Vethian Defense Fleet. We are explorers seeking new worlds for our people. Your civilization appears to be in early stages of space development. We are prepared to offer technology, resources, and guidance in exchange for colonization rights to uninhabited planets in your system. One of the other humans, a woman with kind eyes, stepped forward. I am Sujin, diplomatic officer. Commander Taemin, we appreciate your offer. However, Earth claims sovereignty over this entire star system and several neighboring systems. We cannot grant colonization rights, but we would be happy to discuss trade agreements and cultural exchanges. Taemin's expression hardened slightly. He had expected gratitude, perhaps even worship from such a primitive species. Instead, they were negotiating as equals. You misunderstand the situation. We have 50 warships, each capable of devastating planetary bombardment. You have small stations and primitive weapons. This is not a negotiation between equals. Hyunwoo's calm expression never changed. Commander, I strongly advise you to reconsider your approach. We are willing to be friends. But if you choose to be enemies, you will regret it. Several Vethian officers laughed at the threat. Even Jiwoo found it absurd. These humans had no idea of the power difference between their civilizations. Taemin raised his hand for silence. Captain Hyunwoo, I respect your courage, but courage without strength is foolishness. I will give you 1 planetary rotation to convince your leaders to accept our terms. We want the 4th planet in your system and 3 moons orbiting your gas giant. In return, we will provide defensive technology and medical advances. Refuse and we will take what we need by force. Sujin looked genuinely sad. Commander, please contact your elders. Ask them about humans. Ask them why this region of space is marked as restricted in your old charts. There is still time to avoid disaster. The only disaster will be yours if you refuse our generous offer. Taemin replied coldly. You are dismissed. Return to your ship and deliver my message. The 3 humans were escorted back to their patrol craft. As they prepared to leave, Hyunwoo turned to Jiwoo, who stood nearest to him. Tell your commander something for me, Hyunwoo said quietly. Tell him that my grandfather was a historian. He studied first contact scenarios between civilizations. Do you know what he learned? The civilizations that survive are not always the strongest or the most advanced. They are the ones who know when to walk away from a fight. Your elders understood this. You should have listened to them. The patrol ship departed. Heading back toward Earth, Jiwoo immediately went to find Taemin on the bridge. Commander, I need to speak with you privately, she said. In his ready room, Jiwoo pulled up the partially decrypted files from Elder Kale's crystal. Sir, I have been studying these records. They contain tactical assessments from the second expedition. The one that sent distress calls, but what do they say? The expedition commander reported that humans do not follow conventional warfare doctrine. They use psychological tactics, unconventional strategies, and show no fear of death in combat. One report describes human fighters ramming their small ships into larger vessels, sacrificing themselves to create openings for other attackers. Another describes human soldiers fighting hand-to-hand in zero gravity using nothing but knives when their guns ran out of ammunition. Taemin frowned. Desperation tactics. They were probably defending their homeworld. That is exactly the situation we are creating now, Jiwoo pointed out. Sir, these humans are not going to surrender. They are going to fight. And according to these records, when humans fight, they do not stop until either they win or they are completely destroyed. Then they will be destroyed, Taemin said firmly. Jiwoo, I understand your concern, but we cannot let fear of old stories dictate our actions. Yes, the humans may fight, but they will lose. Our shields can withstand anything their primitive weapons can throw at us. The second expedition had shields too, Jiwoo said quietly. They sent 30 warships. Only fragments of their final transmissions survived. They were not destroyed by advanced weapons, sir. They were overwhelmed by sheer numbers and absolute determination. Taemin placed a hand on her shoulder. You are my most trusted officer. Your caution has saved us before, but this time I believe you are worrying too much. We will proceed carefully. If the humans show any capability that threatens our fleet, we will retreat immediately. I promise. 20 hours later, the deadline expired. Earth sent no response to the ultimatum. Taemin ordered his fleet into offensive formation. On Earth, in the underground command center beneath Geneva, military leaders watched the alien fleet organize itself. Admiral Sang-woo studied the tactical display with experienced eyes. They think they have already won, he said to his staff. They see our old stations and slow ships and they believe we are helpless. Should we try diplomacy again? Asked one of the younger officers. Sang-woo shook his head. They were given a choice. They chose threats instead of friendship. Now we show them what humans do to invaders. Send the activation codes to all defense platforms. Wake up the reserves. And someone get me a direct line to the lunar bases. Tell them to prepare for Operation Hornet's Nest. Sir, that operation was designed as a last resort. The casualties will be— I know what the casualties will be, Sang-woo interrupted. But those aliens are about to learn an important lesson. Humans do not surrender. Ever. Not when our home is threatened. Send the orders. Across the Sol system, hidden bases that had been silent for decades roared to life. Thousands of ships, old and new, began moving into position. On Earth, people looked up at the sky and saw the alien fleet hovering like a threat. They did not panic. They did not flee. They prepared to fight. In orbit, Taemin noticed unusual activity on his sensors. Dong-ha, what is happening? Commander, I am detecting massive power signatures across the system. Ships are launching from everywhere. Hidden bases on asteroids, underground facilities on planets and moons. Sir, my count just passed 1,000 human vessels and is still climbing. Jiwoo's face went pale. Tactical alert. Multiple weapon locks detected. Commander, we are being targeted by over 3,000 individual missile launchers. Taemin stared at the tactical display as thousands of red dots appeared around his fleet. This is impossible. Our scans showed they only had 200. They hid everything, Jiwoo whispered. They showed us exactly what they wanted us to see. A transmission came through on all channels. Hyunwoo's face appeared on the main screen, but he was no longer calm. His eyes burned with determination. Commander Taemin, this is your final warning. Leave our system now or face the consequences. You threatened our home. That was your mistake. Taemin felt his confidence waver for the first time, but pride would not let him retreat. All ships shields to maximum. Prepare to engage the enemy. The battle for Earth was about to begin. The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive ring of metal and glass that orbited the green planet of Veth Prime. Inside the Grand Hall, representatives from 40 different worlds sat in their designated sections, their voices echoing through the vast room as they debated the future of their civilization. Commander Taemin stood near the viewing window, watching his home planet turn slowly below. He was young for his rank, barely into his third decade, but he had proven himself capable in every simulation and exercise. His uniform was crisp and decorated with medals that showed his rapid rise through the military ranks. Today, the council would decide on his proposal, and he felt confident they would approve. The Orion Arm remains unexplored. Taemin addressed the assembly, his voice amplified through the chamber. Our scans show dozens of habitable worlds, rich resources, and plenty of space for our growing population. We have the ships, the technology, and the will to expand. I propose we send an expeditionary force immediately. Most of the council members nodded in agreement. The younger representatives seemed especially enthusiastic. Only a few of the older members appeared troubled by the suggestion. Jiwoo sat at the tactical station behind Taemin, reviewing data on her screen. She had served with him for 5 years and trusted his judgment in most matters. But something about this mission felt different. She had been reading through old navigation charts, and every single one marked the Orion arm with a red warning symbol. When she tried to access the reasons for the warning, the files were either corrupted or locked behind ancient security protocols. An elderly figure rose from the back of the chamber. Elder Kale moved slowly, his age showing in every step. He had served the council for longer than most members had been alive. His voice was quiet but firm when he spoke. "I must object to this proposal," Elder Kale said. The chamber fell silent. "The Orion arm is restricted for good reason. The old warnings exist to protect us." "Warnings from 1,000 years ago," one of the younger council members interrupted, "based on myths and stories that probably never happened." Elder Kale shook his head. "They are not myths. I have studied the ancient records. There is a species in that region, a dangerous species. They call themselves humans." Several council members laughed. Taman tried to maintain respect for the elder, but even he found it hard to take the warning seriously. Their civilization had explored hundreds of star systems. They had never encountered a species they could not communicate with, trade with, or if necessary, overcome. "With respect, Elder," Taman said carefully, "our technology has advanced significantly since those warnings were written. Our ships can travel faster than light. Our weapons can destroy asteroids, and our shields can withstand direct hits from solar radiation. What could possibly threaten us?" Elder Kale looked at the young commander with sad eyes. "That is exactly what the last expedition said before they disappeared. Pride comes before the fall, Commander. The ancients knew things we have forgotten." Jiwoo pulled up something on her screen and raised her hand. "Elder Kale, I have been researching the old records. I found references to 3 different expeditions sent to the Orion arm over the past millennium. None of them returned. Do you know what happened to them?" The chamber grew quiet. This was new information to most of the council members. Elder Kale nodded slowly. "The first expedition of 12 ships entered human space 600 years ago. They sent one message back, saying they had made contact with a primitive species. Then silence. The second expedition, 80 years later, consisted of 30 warships. They were sent to investigate. We received fragments of distress calls before losing all contact. The third expedition never reported back at all. After that, the elders declared the region forbidden. 600 years ago, another council member pointed out. Whatever happened then has nothing to do with now. Those ships were using old technology. Commander Taman's fleet would have every advantage." Taman stepped forward. "Elder Kale, I understand your concern, but we cannot let old fears prevent progress. Our people need room to grow. These worlds are perfect for colonization. I propose we enter the region carefully, with full military escort and constant communication with Veth Prime. At the first sign of danger, we retreat." The council voted. 40 hands rose in favor of the expedition. Only Elder Kale and 2 other elderly members voted against it. The decision was made. After the meeting, Jiwoo found Elder Kale in the archive room. The old man was searching through data crystals, his movements urgent despite his age. "Elder, can I help you with something?" she asked. He looked at her with worry in his eyes. "You are the tactical officer, yes? The one who asked about the lost expeditions?" "Yes, sir." "Then you understand we are making a terrible mistake." He held up a small crystal. "I have been trying to unlock the full records, but my security access is no longer high enough. The council archived these files centuries ago thinking them irrelevant, but I remember what my teacher told me and her teacher told her going back generations." "What did they say?" Elder Kale sat down heavily. "The humans are not like us. They did not evolve on a peaceful world. Their planet tried to kill them every day, and they survived by becoming more dangerous than anything else on their world. When they developed space travel, they carried that survival instinct with them. The ancients made an alliance with them once during a great war. The humans fought with such intensity that even our enemies fled in terror. After the war, the elders agreed humans should be left alone. They are good friends but terrible enemies." Jiwoo listened carefully. "But if they were our allies once, why not try diplomacy now?" "Because the humans who were our allies are long dead. These new humans do not know us. And if we arrive in their space with warships, they will not see diplomacy. They will see invasion." Elder Kale stood and pressed the crystal into her hand. "Take this. Perhaps your security access can unlock it. If you can read what is inside, show it to Commander Taman. Make him understand before it is too late. 2 weeks later, Taman stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the 50 warships assembled around him. Each ship was a masterpiece of Vethian engineering, equipped with weapons that could reduce a moon to dust. His crew was trained and ready. Jiwoo stood beside him, her expression troubled. "Still worried about the Elder's warnings?" he asked her quietly. "I managed to partially decrypt that crystal he gave me, Taman. The files contain battle footage. What I saw—" "Old videos of old ships," Taman interrupted gently. "Jiwoo, I respect your caution, but we are ready for anything. Trust me." The fleet engaged their faster-than-light drives and jumped into the unknown. Behind them, on Veth Prime, Elder Kale stood at his window and whispered a prayer for their safe return. Deep in his heart, he knew they would need more than prayers where they were going.